Hey everybody, Derek here. I'm here to bring you my video review for Four Walls and a Roof. I just watched the episode, and all I have to say right now at this point is wow. Definitely was probably the best episode of the season so far. I was definitely impressed with a lot of things that they did, and it was definitely a very terrifying episode that did a lot. So I'm gonna get to it. But again, this is a warning for anybody watching. There are spoilers. I'm gonna be saying everything that happened, basically giving my thoughts on it and some predictions for the future. So if you have not watched it yet, you don't want to be spoiled, do not watch the video because you will get spoiled. Okay. So, yeah, this episode was absolutely incredible, absolutely, horrifying to watch, on the edge of your seat, the entire time. I was absolutely impressed with it. Definitely had me on the edge the entire time. And a lot happened. In this episode, we saw the Hunter's storyline come to a conclusion, which kind of follows along with the comic books, how they were only in the comic books for approximately 6 issues or so, so only like one volume worth of material. And I think the reason for that is just because you can only make the Hunters really so terrifying. It makes sense. I kind of predicted a little bit that they might end it early because if you spread the storyline out too long, it's just going to get repetitive. I mean, what more could they do other than, have them capture somebody else and eat them? It just wouldn't have been as shocking to the audience. And I think that was what the whole point was here was, you know, they were a great story. It was a great arc, but they had to bring it to a close early because there's just no way to make it terrifying. In addition, there's no way that they would ever join up with them to Washington. This episode confirmed that the trailer was pretty much just um those lines were made up, kind of like how we know that The Walking Dead can sometimes trick us in the trailer into thinking that something's going to happen and it won't. Yeah, there were no storyline intentions of these groups pairing up and going to Washington, especially after you cut Bob's leg off. I mean, come on, there's no camaraderie there after that, no chance that that's ever going to happen. But um, very brutal, absolutely brutal the way that they took them out, which is to be expected. Definitely a lot of hostilities there between Rick and the rest of the group after they returned Bob without one of his legs. I mean, that's just going to anger you. Knowing that Bob is going to die definitely brought out all the rage in Rick, in Sasha, in Michonne, and you just see it coming. And it was actually very interesting. I love that scene. At first, I thought I thought like the television broke or something because like they had it staring out at that Saint Sarah's sign for so long. I was like, what the heck, AMC? I thought the TV broke, but no, you see the hunters coming out from the woods. You're like, oh, this is getting good. So they came to the church. Of course, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a big standoff. What is going on? And Rick and the group come back. This was probably their plan all along. They kind of figured that the hunters would come to them, so they waited outside and saw them go in, and then they came in and trapped them. And it was definitely very well organized. Definitely a very, very intense scene. Probably almost as intense as the standoff between the governor's people and Rick's group at the prison at Too Far Gone. Definitely was on the edge of your seat the entire time. I was very impressed. And the way that they died, it definitely you have mixed feelings about it. A little. I mean, when you think practically, I mean, honestly, you're glad they're dead. I mean, no doubt in my mind, it was great, to see Rick's group exact revenge on them for what they did to Bob, for what they did to those people. I mean, these are just absolutely terrible people that are cannibalizing others. And Rick even said it. It's like, if we let these people go, yeah, he may promise that our paths will never cross again, but they're going to do this to somebody else. And they've learned their lesson. They let them go once before, and Bob got taken and eaten, and they let the governor go, and he came back and killed Herschel and several people at the prison. So they weren't going to let them get away. And definitely brutal. Rick followed up with his promise, took the red-handled machete and hacked Gareth up into very nice little pieces. That was that body was definitely disgusting, to say the least. And Sasha took care of Martin, and I believe the only other people that were in on like the actual violent part was Abraham and Michonne. I think I don't know if somebody else was or not. I think it was just them that did it. And right away you're looking at people around them because Glenn saw it, Maggie saw it, Tara saw it, Father Gabriel saw it, and Tyrese looked out and saw them massacring the hunters. And you just see like the looks on their faces. They're definitely horrified by what they're seeing, and it makes sense because you know, one of the things that The Walking Dead likes to do is it likes to throw out those moral, dilemmas, of what you're willing to do in the Walking Dead world, and you know, Glenn has always been about, we have to be a certain kind of people. I think that Glenn definitely holds on to a lot of the things that Herschel did, and I think you see that with Glenn and Maggie. When they were both horrified at what Rick and them were doing to the hunters, it was kind of like them saying, well, how does that make us better than them that we're going to hack them up like that? At least that's how I looked at it. I mean, I think they were justified, and it's not going to be like one of those, issues later on. Maybe like it'll be mentioned once, but these people have understood that sometimes you have to do brutal things in order to survive, and I think that, they just realized that this was necessary. It had to be done. So, no issues there, but I definitely think that, a lot of what Glenn and Maggie look towards in Herschel, they still carry with them, and I think that's why they had such a strong reaction to the way the hunters were killed. And in addition, you know that that's the kind of guy Tyrese is, that he just doesn't want to see things like that happening. He wants to hold on to that humanity, so you had that part of it as well. And then the other part with and what I actually found interesting was right after it when Sasha, if you look carefully at that scene, even Sasha starts to, it hits her like what she's done. And, you start to see it in her too, like, oh my gosh, I just took a huge chunk out of this guy's neck with my knife. And she definitely, I think it hit her in that moment what she had done, and she started to feel the same thing that Glenn and Maggie and them were feeling. So I think that that was very well crafted. They definitely did a good job of balancing out the let's get revenge on the hunters, and we feel like, hey, good thing we did this, especially towards the audience. We're all like, yeah, don't lie, you were happy about it. And it also, on the other hand, noticing the brutality that went along with that, and just like the moment that they devolved into these savages that just killed people in a very brutal way. They did a good job of balancing it out. And I mean, again, we can rationalize it definitely was something that was deserved, but you also, on the other hand, you look at the moral implications of it, and, it's just a very brutal act. So I think they did a good job of balancing that out, but, I definitely think it was very well crafted, very well done by all of the actors. And then, we also have, even before that, what was very interesting was the way that the group was, debating about what to do. Abraham is all about, no, we need to leave right now. We're getting the heck out of Dodge. And, Rick's like, no, you're not going anywhere with that bus. And you see like the different ideals fighting each other. And Glenn playing the mediator again. It's always very interesting because you see that Glenn frequently is, he's willing to do, whatever needs to be done to protect his family, but he also wants to be like a mediator in a lot of ways. Like you saw that, a lot throughout the series, and even before this, whenever Rick was just going to leave that guy in the storage container, and Glenn's like, no, that is not who we are, Rick. We need to do that. Coming in between, what different people might be thinking and saying, no, we need to do this. We can't become something that we're not. And, I like how he just stepped in and, was able to diffuse the situation between Rick and Abraham, because Abraham's all gung-ho about leaving, and Rick is, I mean, I don't think that Rick would have killed Abraham for the bus, but I definitely think that there would have been a severe beatdown if Glenn would not have stepped in. And it was nice to see that. And it's definitely Glenn has always been a very interesting character, and I've always loved the role that he plays, and he definitely did a very good portrayal in this particular episode. Stephen Yun did a very excellent job in that role, and you just see how Glenn is always trying to prevent things from happening because that could have went south very very quickly. And I also found it very interesting, just in general that Glenn left with Abraham. When we got to the end of the episode, basically what happened was Abraham agreed to stay for 12 hours, and then otherwise they're getting out of there because Abraham wants to get, they need to continue, they need to move on with the mission, but Rick is not going to leave Daryl and Carol behind. That's just not what he does. He believes in family. He wants to keep his group intact, and I found it very surprising. I don't know if there was something I'm missing, but I mean, I think that part of the reason why Glenn and Maggie and Tara went with Abraham was because they said they would. But I think that in another sense, it's also, maybe some kind of like connection, to make sure maybe they do reconnect, that some of them do go to help Abraham with the mission because they do believe in it. It might have also been because they just needed to step away from that part of the group for a while. I mean, again, Glenn and Maggie were definitely horrified by what happened. And that, while they're not going to hate Rick in the group, I just think that maybe it was a moment for them to step away. Plus, I also just believe that they really do believe in the mission enough that they're going to help Abraham, and maybe they feel more useful going with Abraham. I mean, we know they're going to reconnect at some point. I mean, that's just the way the show goes, but definitely was very interesting to see that. And I keep saying, like, Maggie knows that Beth is alive, and yet she just continues to be, oh, well, screw my sister, I got my husband. I mean, I wouldn't say that they were necessarily like, the closest of sisters. I don't know their relationship, but I find it very interesting that she hasn't even gone out to find Beth yet. I mean, I guess it's, you see both sides of it because, Daryl told her what happened, so maybe she just realizes that Beth's may be in a good place, or maybe that she just can't help her and it's just against the best interest of the group. I don't know, but definitely I keep getting surprised that Maggie was like so, connected to going with the mission and not staying behind and seeing what happened. But we'll see what happens. I'm interested. And then probably the saddest part of the episode was losing Bob. Bob was bitten, just like we thought. He was bitten back at the food bank when that walker pulled him under, and he that was an absolutely horrifying scene, the tainted meat. I mean, Lawrence Gilliard Jr. delivered that very well. It was definitely a scene, like, you wanted to know, like, what exactly was the portrayal from the comic, like, how are they saying it, like, how is Dale in the comic saying this line? And I think Bob definitely, delivered it perfectly. Lawrence Gilliard Jr. was a great actor on the show. I really think that that was a perfect part that was played. And Bob just was always a very hopeful, optimistic guy. And, you just realize that your days are numbered, unfortunately, when you start doing things like that, because you have to be setting up a very bleak world for the characters. But I definitely, am going to miss Bob. I'm going to miss his enthusiasm. He definitely was a great character. Definitely a great addition for the show. Definitely was not a waste of space. I enjoyed Bob. I definitely am going to miss him next season. And I just love, his quote just amazes me, how nightmares end, they shouldn't end who you are. Great way to sum everything up. Bob definitely had very great things to say anytime he was, on the screen. And I just think that I hope that Rick always carries that with him. Because it's very symbolic of, that whole entire episode, yeah, you may have had to do a very terrible thing, but, it shouldn't end who you are as a person. Yeah, these bad times are going to come to an end, but it shouldn't destroy you totally from what you were before. And, I think that Bob definitely had hope that they could all go to Washington and rebuild society and get back to what they were, kind of what they were before. I mean, you're definitely going to have your demons, but I just think that Bob summed it up best, and I really think they did a great job of that. I am gonna miss him, Lawrence Gilliard Jr. You are a great actor, and I think that you were definitely a very positive influence for the show. I am definitely sad to see him go. And it was also nice, the moments between Sasha and Bob were just very, very amazing. Definitely, I guarantee audiences all over the place were tearing up a little bit. I mean, it was definitely very, very sad to see those two. And I liked how Bob was, like Sasha asked, like, how come you didn't tell me that you were bitten? And Bob was like, well, because you would have been focused on the end. I like the middle. And that makes sense. It's like, yeah, Bob knows he's going to die, but like getting those couple of kisses from Sasha, believing that everything is okay, is something that he would much rather spend his last final hours, rather than just, them talking about, oh, Bob's dying, Bob's dying, Bob's dying, Bob's dying, it makes sense. And, I think it was very well played, and I'm definitely going to miss Bob. Definitely going to miss him. And heck, now all the prison survivors are dead. Anybody that came to the prison after Rick and the group is now dead. I'm not including Tyrese or Sasha in there. I'm talking about anybody that was introduced in season 4 as a new character is pretty much dead, and that's kind of sad. Like it's like ending a very big part of the show. And I feel like in some ways Bob was the obvious choice of someone to kill, but I don't think the deaths are over on the show, and I think that before we're done with season 5, I mean, even before the mid-season finale, I think there's going to be at least one more death, no doubt in my mind. So I'm going to do a video on that later. And then just the very last thing that happened, they left us off at a very, very bad cliffhanger. Michonne is sitting outside the church with Gabriel, and they hear something in the woods, and it's Daryl. So, Daryl and Carol have been missing this entire episode. I thought that they would parallel, like show what they were doing while Rick and the group are facing off against the Hunters. I thought that that's what they were going to do, and we don't see Daryl and Carol at all in here. I'm thinking, well, they're probably going to show them in the next episode. We'll go in between Daryl and Carol and Beth, and no, Daryl pops out of the woods. Hey, how you doing? And definitely has a very interesting look on his face. I don't know what he's thinking, but he motions to the woods, come on out. And that's when it ends. Cuts, we don't know who it is. Well, the first thing that we realize is something happened to Carol. No doubt in my mind. I am going to do a video separately from this about people who may be coming out of the woods. I will do a separate video on that tomorrow, but I'm not going to go into too much of it. The one thing I can tell you right now is it's clearly not Carol, because no reason for Daryl to have to be like, hey, Carol, come on out. Yeah, no. So somebody else is coming out of that woods. I don't know who, but I'm going to give a couple theories on that, and we will see what happens. So that's all I have to say about this episode. Again, very great, and I am going to miss Bob. Rest in peace, Bob. I'm probably going to do a dedication video to Bob as well, but definitely was a very sad episode, and I'm definitely interested to see where they go with the story after this. So, hey, thanks everybody for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I have more videos coming, and if you guys have any topics that you would like me to do, don't be afraid to suggest them in the comments or message me on my YouTube account. Thanks, guys. Have a very wonderful evening. Thank you.